even had like naval armed tactics that they were using, and they were much more sophisticated in their approach. They would have like a trail car, you know, that would come by and finish people off. I mean, they really were organized. They turned into organized killers rather than just random drive-bys. They planned this stuff out, and they worked at it, and they practiced it, and I'd never seen anything like that before.
Besides the Asian boys, you also cover gang life in the streets of Los Angeles. Most notably, your story on Chucky and Midget from Tortilla Flats. Do you recall that story?
Oh yeah, that story I think had more reactions from people than anything I've ever done.
What were your thoughts when you first saw the two young men?
Very sad, you know, very sad. I mean, the first night I met them, there was a Compton police officer who told us about these two young kids in Tortilla Flats gang, and they were just like 8 and 12, I think, at the time. And I went down there by myself one night with a photographer, and they had absconded a house that was like their fort, and there was graffiti all over, and I spent like a couple hours there, and they were shooting at cars going by in the streets, and my reaction was just, I mean, I'd seen a lot of gang stuff by then, but I just thought, these poor kids, you know, they don't get it. They don't get where this life is going to take them, you know. And I remember just thinking, this is going to be an important story, because this is happening with thousands of kids in Los Angeles, you know. And I don't think anybody who matters, who could do something about it, is even aware of it. But this one cop did from Compton. He got it, you know. And he saw a lot. He was a Compton cop for like 20 years or something. And he knew this story would be powerful, and it was. And actually, I had a long relationship with one of those characters in there, Midget, who eventually went to prison for life. But even while he was in prison, I was in contact with him for years after that, you know. And he's another one where he was smart, and he had personality, and, you know, given a different life, he could have been something, you know. It's sad. He had charisma, you know. But he ended up in prison for the rest of his life.
After airing the story, were you hopeful that the two young men would change their life, or something would trigger?
Yeah, I was hopeful that they would get out of it, you know. I remember talking to both their mothers at the time, and yeah, I was hopeful, but it didn't go that way. It just got worse. I mean, they both ended up one ended up dead, shot and killed, and the other one ended up in prison for the rest of his life. So, I mean, but I'll tell you, I had a teacher, a 5th grade teacher from South Central somewhere, who wrote me a long letter and said that he had shown that piece to 5,000 students. And he said it had more impact than anything he'd ever shown his students before, you know. So that made me feel good, you know.
Were there any tense moments when hanging out with the guys in the gang?
Well, I think, you know, when you're hanging around with a bunch of gangsters, and I think they'll say this about themselves, you never know what's going to happen, you know. I remember being out with a gang called Clantone on the San Fernando Valley one night, and we were out there a couple hours, and there's like a couple dozen of them on a street corner where they're hanging out there, and then they started disappearing after a while, you know. And I remember there were 2 guys, they were homeboys, buddies, you know. And I looked around, and all of a sudden they're rolling around the ground, and they're trying to kill each other, you know. And one had said something to the other. And these guys were like best buddies that he took as an insult, you know. And I just turned to my photographer, and I said, get in the truck and get out of here. I mean, I thought somebody was going to end up dead. I mean, they were just pounding on each other, you know. It's just like, and so when you're around a gang, things can happen that at any given moment, just based on somebody saying the wrong thing or looking at you the wrong way. So there's always danger. There's always danger there, you know. And I just, like, again, I just tried to be cautious. And I never tried to talk like a gang member or anything. I always just talked like I talk. And I always tried to talk to gang members just like they're another human being. And I think, you know, somebody asked me once, would you, like, you know, even Father Greg Boyle, he talks to them a lot with gang talk, kind of. I never did that, you know. And I think that I think some of them sort of appreciated the fact that I was there and I was just me, you know.